Way better role. Way better. Like, love it. I'm like,
Ready?
okay. This is Haley. And this is Bailey. You're listening to Unleashed.
I was tracking you on Find My Friends, and I love that we follow each other on Find My Friends. Or I guess it's called Find My now, not Find My Friends, because apparently that was
Really?
like stalkerish. Yeah, it was called Find My Friends for a while, and then they changed it to just Find My, because apparently
I didn't know
it
it
was
was
like
changed.
creepy. Yeah, it was a long time ago, maybe like over a year or two ago. Anyway,
Oh, I still call it Find My Friends.
yeah, I always like to check to see where you're at before I call you sometimes, just to be like, kind of get a rough. I mean, with you living in an RV, it's always like a shot in the dark. I feel like, because you never really know if you're gonna be busy. So I'm like, is she at the beach, or is she gonna be like, could that be in her RV? I don't know. I'm like, I'm gonna try anyway and call her. And so I'm just like, that's so nice. But I realized not a lot of people, like friends, will follow each other on Find My.
I actually more recently started following friends, and it's so interesting, and I actually think it's a really cool way, if you're like close enough with the person, to connect with them in a different way, because I've talked to so many people where they follow their friends and then they look at like Find My and they're near people, so then they end up being like, hey, you want to grab a coffee, where you wouldn't have thought of it, and it kind of, I feel like, gets you
or hey, you want to bring me a coffee kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you want to bring me
Exactly.
Chick-fil-A? Yes. I've seen
I
funny
feel like
reels like that.
Have you? I haven't seen those.
Oh, really?
But
Where they're like, oh, you're at Chick-fil-A, bring me something.
Oh, no, I haven't seen those. I feel like you would do that to Bryce. I feel like you'd be like, you're passing a Chick-fil-A, stop.
Oh, yeah. But I usually just tell him that on his way out the door. It's like a normal.
That's true. Yeah. I feel like I actually didn't look at Find My that often until we became friends, because then you'd be like, oh, I was looking at it. And I was like, really? So then I started doing it to you, and it would always be when you were coming over or something, but then you were trying to surprise me, and like you would go to get Trader Joe's and get me something, you know, that I loved or something like that. So you'd turn it off. And every time that I've looked, it's been off. It's like every time you show up, I'm like, it's off. And you're like, it's not off. And they're like,
it's not off.
Yes,
I turned it back on. I'm like, I know you. I know you're looking.
It's the only time I look too, which is so funny. It's never like the random times when it is on.
That's funny. It's always interesting to me when you see like your friends or family like flying in the sky, and then they're like moving at rapid pace, like across the borders and all the way into like Kansas and up north. And it's like, wow, they are flying. Quite literally.
You literally, and I feel like you probably track me on all those crazy things, like driving cross country and when we flew to Europe. And
yeah, it was fun. It was a good time. So we've talked about like love languages before, a few here and there, but like everyone talks about them in regards to romantically or like with themselves, with a romantic partner. But what about friend wise? Like everyone has a love language with their friends. Like, do you like to spend quality time with them? I mean, I'm going to list all 5 in case people don't remember. So there's physical touch. So hugging. We'll just leave it at that. Hugging. Then there's words of affirmation, acts of service. Why am I blanking on some of these? Oh, gift giving, and then I already said quality time, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
So the physical touch, gift giving, words of affirmation, quality time, and acts of service. I feel like I just repeated myself again.
Words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, physical touch. What was
I definitely said all of.
Yeah,
I said all of them. I think I just can't. I just overthinking it.
Yeah, okay, we're back. It's all right.
Yeah, okay.
Confirmed.
Okay, cool.
We know
all right.
them.
So which one do you like to give, like, to people and like to receive in friendships?
That's a good question. I feel like something we always talk about is I'm very words of affirmation. I feel like that's very me. I think. Is that right? I feel like you know.
In general, or like with friends?
I feel like you know this pretty well on me. I feel like you really pay attention to this.
I feel like for you really need words of affirmation and that community. I think in a friendships way, I would say that would be like communication and just like checking in and seeing how you're doing. Like say, oh, you're doing so great, kind of those things. I think that's a huge one. I think in a lot of friendships.
Yeah, that's what I was.
I think like that's like something you need.
Yeah.
And then what would you say you give?
It's a good question. This is a hard question. I feel like
it is a hard question because it requires some self-reflecting. While you think, I think for me, what I like to, go for it. What I like to give, I think I really like quality time. because yes, definitely quality time.
You like that or you like giving that?
I like to give that or get that.
So both.
I like to get that. Yes. Giving, I think for giving, I'm more of a, I guess it really just depends on my friend because sometimes I'm a gift giver and sometimes I'm like, I don't want to get you anything. It just
Yeah, I feel like it
depends.
depends so much. Like I was gonna say that too. Like I feel like I give a lot of words of affirmation, and that's probably because I like that. And I think a lot of times you will do what you like, and I think in a friendship you almost have to learn what that person likes. So I think it becomes very personalized to the person. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah,
And I
I
think
totally agree. And I think that's a really good way of, having a relationship with a friend. You gotta, it's to each their own, they're all so unique. I think that one thing I've realized with our friendship that we've both kind of been like, and it's been interesting to see it kind of grow, is that with it being a long distance friendship, it requires a lot more, I think, effort, but I think it's not effort in regards of like it's like a lot of work. It's become kind of smooth, but like I'll send you little gifts here and there, and like you're having a rough day, or like you said earlier when we were talking about finding you're tracking me and I was getting you something when you came home from Europe. I got you some flowers and a little snack that you was your favorite. And those little things I think are really fun in a friendship because it just shows, oh, I was thinking about you. Like, hey, you're not like out of convenience. I think a lot of friendships can be out of convenience, and that's where a lot can fall through the cracks.
I agree. And I think that's something that actually, if you're listening to this, I think sometimes to step back and reflect in a friendship and see like what you really notice that you like in a friendship. That's something with you is when you were giving gifts and like little things, I really noticed that. And I was like, wow, this is something that's really nice to do. And it's not that I didn't do it before, but I feel like now it's more present. And now it's something that I think about a little more because I was like, I really appreciate that extra thought. And I think it made me slow down and think about those things a little more. That's what you can get from friendships. I think a lot of times people go into a friendship like, oh, this is going to be the same thing. But I think really in friendships, you want to learn from them. That's a really good thing to take away is like, oh, I really liked that. Oh, I really didn't like that. And whatever it is, how you want to be a better friend, because that's something I feel like this last year we both have been working on, not just in like our friendships, but other friendships too. I would say we've talked about this a lot. It really stemmed from when we became friends because we really started working on ourselves and we almost started trusting, I think, a little more in friendships. I feel like we've talked about that a lot.
It's true. I think with a lot of friendships too, when you have to remember that a lot of friendships are not the same. And so when you do, you can't, like, I know that when we first became friends, I was like, wow, I have a really good friend. I've never realized like the depth of what a friendship could be. And then I was starting to compare everything to it, like family relationships, friend relationships. I'm just like, wow, these are all so shallow and like crappy. And I was like, no, they're not. They're just different. And I think that a lot of people have to understand that every friendship is different and you can't have these high expectations in friendships. And when you learn to kind of let those go, your friendships can become stronger when you don't hold them to such high expectations.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think something too is like you kind of said this too, but in each friendship, seeing what you love in it and knowing that not every friendship is going to be the exact same, like you said, that's something I had to learn too. Like, oh, this friend is a person I go and do this with, and I really love doing that, but maybe that's not something me and you do. And every friend brings something different into your life, and I think that's what's really cool because we always try to compare things, and friendships aren't comparable because everybody is so different.
No, it's true. Like when I also realized too that in friendships, especially as we get older, and we've talked about this in previous friendship episodes, but you have to understand that as you grow up and you kind of turn into different phases of life, that it becomes harder to connect with people. And like, for example, me and you were on the same page for a little while. And then as like time has come like and gone, we've talked about different phases of our life and whether that's on the same path or not, it's going to be like one of those things that we're going to have to learn how to adapt together. And it's going to be exciting, but it's also challenging. I think like Evan once said, you can't expect things to not happen in a friendship. And it's about how you work through those. And that really scared me when he said that because I honestly think that a lot of people don't take the time to have those moments in friendships. They'll just gloss over them or let it pass. And like for me and you, we really work hard at talking through things that like whether you're having a rough day or something that, might be bothering you or me. And it's just, I really value that because it shows that we do care. And having those awkward conversations with friends are not always easy, especially if you're not involved in their life routinely. So it's not like someone's going to all of a sudden want to open up about, something really hard they're going through if they're not talking to you routinely. You just kind of keep it surface. And I've heard that a lot of people struggle with keeping these long distance friendships because all they do when they do catch up, it's surface catch up stuff. They don't have time to get into the deep stuff.
Definitely. That's something I've had to learn a lot of over the last few years, is how to keep those friendships that I want to be deep, because it's not easy. Like, keeping those friendships that are not surface is not easy, especially when you're never home, when you're never around the people. And something I really learned this year, and I'd say probably only since like summer, is really how much those little, if it's not something like me and you, we talk every day, you know what's going on. I can call you, I can pick up the phone and literally start crying to you about something, and you know what that's about without there being backstory. So that's one kind of friendship. You can have that, but not every friendship's going to be like that, because if every friendship was like that, you would be on the phone all day long and you probably would never get anything done. But I think something that I really yeah, for sure. But I feel like something I really have learned is, in those other friendships that maybe you're not talking every single day and they know every little moment, is picking up on the things that you know are important and remembering. Like, one of my friends had a really important appointment, and remembering that appointment and sending them a text that morning. I mean, like, hey, thinking about you today, hope it goes well. And those little things that might not seem that deep and like might seem like a little text, those add to those layers. And you taking those 5 seconds to send that text builds that friendship in new ways. It can be such simple things. Like, my friend was going to do a photo shoot, and I was like, hey, have a great day today. Like, good luck. Can't wait to hear about it. And it's like those little things that you might like,
those
I don't
little
need to text
memories
them.
or like little things they're going through or whatever. Congratulations on this, or hey, I remembered this was happening a year ago, or I know that you're having this today. Like, those little things just show little pieces of effort, and those go a long way for people. Trust me. I've experienced it. I'm sure you have. It's just one of those things that, like, that's what carries a friendship relationship, especially when it comes to long distance.
Definitely. And something else I feel like on that, even I'm going to try to say this the right way, but sometimes you have to put in the effort, maybe sometimes a little more, for it to then start to happen the other way around. And I think something I really struggled with, at least when I had a lot, I do still, but like at the beginning of having a lot of long distance friends, I expected everybody to kind of check in with me all the time. But I realized that I had to start doing that first to kind of get things going a lot of times, because then once you're doing it, they kind of remember, oh, I'm going to check in, because you're just doing that constantly. But I think a lot of times you can be like, oh, they're supposed to text me, or they're supposed to do this. And it's just not that way always. Like, friendships are a lot of work, and it's a two-way street, and we've talked about that before, but it's so important to remember that when you are like in friendships, different ways to grow is like, okay, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to try and do this so that it's
true.
up.
And a lot of people get uncomfortable doing that stuff. Like, they think, oh, I don't want to be annoying, or I don't want to be that friend that's just constantly bothering them. Chances are, if you're trying to pursue this friendship and you are coming across, or you feel like you're annoying, like, chances are you're probably overthinking it. But also, I think you'll get a pretty good idea after, I think, a little while, if you're constantly the only one reaching out and it's like been a decent amount of time. I mean, okay, yeah, it's time to reevaluate that.
For sure.
But I think that, like, with you and me, I remember like FaceTiming. I remember I was like, when we were first starting Unleashed, I was like, can I FaceTime you real quick? I would text you and you're like, yeah, sure. And I remember you were in Europe and I was showing you one of our hoodies and I was like, look, it's so cute. And that was kind of like the first time. And then I was like, hey, can I FaceTime you again? It was just like these. And now it's just like, oh, I can just call without even like asking. Like, it's just like, oh, and then if you can't answer, you'll say, hey, I'll call you in 5 or whatever. But those little things, like, it's just getting comfortable. And I remember you're like saying, oh, I've never really had a friend I could just FaceTime like this. And I was like, really? And I was like, see, that's the only way I communicate with, especially with my family. Like, I don't like phone calls. I like being able to see people and express myself. It's just how I am. It's not convenient all the time. But it's just those little routine things also can help. And I remember when we did our little pumpkin thing too, but scheduling time together to like do those little fun friendship dates. We always see people like going on girls trips, and I would love to do a girls trip, but the reality of life right now, like, that just wouldn't work for us. And so we decided just to do painting pumpkins together virtually, and we ate ice cream together. That was so fun. And we found that there was a lot of people who were like, oh, we love that. We should try that sometime. And it's just those little things that go a long way in friendships.
There's so many different fun ways to do it. And it can be, sitting down and having a virtual painting pumpkins night. Or it can be like there was one day you were having a hard day and I sent you money to go buy a coffee on me. And it's like the littlest.
Oh, yeah. I was in the hospital and you sent me money for get Chick-fil-A. And you were like, if I was there, I would come and see you. And I was like, I don't think you're going to want to be in here. There's a lot of gross people around me right now. And then like, oh, you also sent me like some cute pants when I like hit a milestone on my Instagram. That was so cute. I was like, oh my gosh.
But there's so many different ways. Yeah, it's like, okay, let me sit down and FaceTime. Or maybe I can't sit down and FaceTime and do this, but I'm going to send them this because I'm thinking of them. Or I'm going to send them a hoodie because, I don't know, it can be anything. But I think there's just so many ways that you can connect with your friends that I think are a lot of times overlooked, because I feel like this last year it actually has been brought to my attention a lot more, and I have been thinking about it a lot more. So it's something that I think is overlooked a lot, because I was like, I didn't recognize this stuff before as much. Like I thought, I guess we also talked about this in a podcast, was friendships are like when you're in school, it's easy and like those kind of things. So I think when it's as you become an adult and you're in different phases, like we're going to probably be in different phases at one point. Like you're going to have a baby. I might not. Like those things that are big.
I might not.
Well, not right now. We might not have babies at the same time. I mean,
letting everybody know right now, Bailey is not having a baby.
Not right now. I'm just saying.
I'm not either, but it's just the way you worded that. Haley might be having a baby, and then like I'm not. Like, I am not having a baby. Bailey's making that very clear.
Right this second.
But we'll talk tomorrow.
I'm not either. Yeah, but I think there's just such different. I just think there's such different phases you can be in that people are like, well, I just don't relate to them, and it's like you just are in different phases, and that's okay. How can you still connect?
You will one day, probably, maybe. If not, I mean, my sister
kinda,
and I,
sorta,
kinda, maybe, probably not. I remember my sister told me, she's like, we didn't really become friends until maybe even a few years after I became married. Like I would visit her in college when I was single, and we were great friends, but like the relationship did not flourish until I had grown up, essentially. I was young. We're 10 years apart. That's a huge difference. So when she's 20, I was 10. There's like, obviously there needs some time to grow up there. But I remember thinking, wow, like she's so cool. And like, I loved her and I always admired her growing up. And then as I got older and I still like, it just changed and we just really kind of became friends and we clicked, because now that we were both married, I mean, she has kids, but I don't, but it doesn't mean that we can't still get along and have like a good relationship. It's just, you'll be surprised that sometimes you don't have to have anything in common with someone to be friends. Like I have another friend who lives in Colorado, and there's very little things we actually do have in common. Like we actually have almost like nothing in common, but the only thing that we really can share is memories, and like we both are like the same age and we've like grown up together, and it's just fun. But that's how it is, and that's okay, because once you get past the fact that sometimes you don't need to have things in common to have a friendship, and I think a lot of us nowadays, I think, put too much pressure on that.
I definitely think that's something I've learned more recently too. I've just been learning a lot about friendships apparently, but you don't have to have a bunch in common. It's more how that person shows up for you, how you show up for them, and how you connect together in different ways, because you're not ever going to be on the same spot at the same time. It's just not how life works.
So what you were just saying kind of prompted a question I was thinking. You can connect with people, you can sometimes have things in common, sometimes you don't. But nowadays, like I was saying, like as you get older, it's hard to find people to be friends with. And essentially, how can people find other people to connect with? Like, where would they go? A park? Like, I don't know, a baseball game? I don't know, like social media? I mean, that's how, but it's like, and also, let's be real, it's hard putting yourself out there. I wouldn't do that. I mean, you're the one that reached out to me on social media. I would not do that. Like, that is not my thing. And oftentimes I just feel like my life doesn't allow for the stability of a friendship if I tried that. And so I would come into, I think, I used to think that, be more closed-minded about friendships, but I mean, how do people branch out of that? What is there something they can do?
I think there's so many different ways to connect with people. And one of the ways, it's actually funny you said I reached out to you, and I am in Fort Lauderdale right now. And I actually saw somebody post a reel or a TikTok, and it was like, I live here. I want to connect with new people. And then I connected with a few of the people in the comments, and we're going to hang out and something from that. But like, I actually said this, Devin, I was like, if I didn't do social media, there is no way I would have connected with people like this. And people on my Instagram have reached out to me and been like, hey, I saw you're in Florida. I live here. I'd love to connect. And I was like, oh yeah, let's go grab a coffee. But that's like a really unique situation, because I know if I didn't do social media, there's no way I would just randomly be like, hey, let me connect with you.
Yeah, and not everybody has that like account that would allow them to do that.
Yeah. So that's like one really unique way. But actually something that I was talking to one girl about, and I was like, I didn't even know this was a thing. And obviously it's very niche, but there's so many different ways to do this. But I've been running, and somebody was like, do you want to come to running club with me? And I was like, wow, that sounds actually terrifying. But I was like,
wow, that sounds horrible.
That sounds so scary. But I was like, that could be a really good way for me to push myself out of my comfort zone and meet new people around here. And I think that's obviously very niche. That's like for a run. But I think if you like reading books, if you like going to Pilates, whatever you like to do, you find your thing. I think there's a lot more groups than people realize that get together, and that's a really fun way to connect with people. That's a big push, and that's something I really have to push myself to do because it scares me, obviously. But I think meeting new friends doesn't come without it being scary. And I don't think it's easy ever to meet new friends. Like me and you, when we first met, it was scary. It was nerve-wracking. I think you can go to these different coffee dates or whatever you want to do, however you want to.
You do have to put yourself out there. Essentially, at the end of the day, what I've been like trying to think, like, there's not really a situation. If you're wanting friends, you have to put yourself out there. They're not just they're not going to fall in your lap. Like, I mean, obviously they could, but I mean, it's just very rare circumstances. If you don't, like, if we would have never connected, would have never messaged me had I not put myself out there on social media.
For sure.
It's just, like, there's something.
I feel like it's a nerve-wracking thing to meet new people. And I think you have to put yourself in those situations. Obviously, safe and not like in weird situations, but maybe you work remotely. You go to a coffee shop. You push yourself to go work at a coffee shop. Somebody nice sits down next to you, talk to them. Like, that's something I do when I'm in a new place, like at Pilates. Scary. I usually will just like focus. And now anytime someone nice sits next to me, I start talking to them. And I'm like, great. That became a friend. You know what? That was one conversation, didn't lead anywhere. That's fine. You can't expect every person you talk to turn into a friendship, but I think if you don't put yourself out there,
at least
it's hard to then, there's so many times I've done coffee dates with people, coffee friendship, what do you call it? Coffee friendship date? Coffee? Where it didn't, what do you call it?
That works. That sounds good to me.
That's a new name, I guess. I don't know.
I love it.
When you go to coffee with someone, you might walk away and be like, that wasn't the person I'm going to hang out with again. But that's okay. People have probably said that about me.
That was horrible.
That was not my friend. It's like dating. It is like dating.
That is so funny. Yeah. No, I love that. It's true. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to put yourself out there. You have to try. I think what we fear at the end of the day is being rejected. And especially when we put ourselves out there, we stir up all this, courage to do that. And then to be rejected, that sucks. That hurts. Like, I remember I first went to my Pilates class by myself, and it turned out to be a bunch of like 7-year-olds. I was like, oh man, like I really was like, I had to stir up all this energy inside me to do this because this was so not me. And then I was like, gosh dang it. And then I was like, no, I could give up right now. I could just throw in the towel and just, what, I'm good. I'm not going to do it. I was like, I'm going to try another one. And I looked up, I like did some research on trying to find a more Pilates class that was more my vibe. And so maybe younger, so I could maybe vibe with more people or have the chance of meeting someone new. And I did, and definitely was younger people, definitely girls that I could be friends with. Have I actually talked to anyone in the class? Not really. I mean, have I put myself out there though by going? Absolutely. And that's still trying. And I mean, those little things, you never know what can come from it. And I don't give up. Yeah.
And it takes a while. Like go to that Pilates class a bunch. You might not talk to somebody most of the times, but then one time you never know who you're going to click with. I went to so many Pilates classes and I never talked to people. And really once I lived in the RV and I was on the go, that's when I was kind of pushed to oh, if I want to hang out with people, I have to kind of put myself out there. And I think a lot of times when you're in your comfort zone and in the area you live in and you know all, like, you go to the same coffee shop, you do the same things, I think you get very comfortable and you don't have to push yourself out of your comfort zone to meet those people. And I think that's something I've learned from being on the go, is literally like I have to put myself out there if I want to meet people, because I don't know anyone. There's nobody I can turn to for comfort. Like, Evan's here, but he's out on the water training or with the people, you know, like those kind of things. And I think a lot of times it's really putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations to lead to a friendship you never know, because that's how we became friends, is, you know, one message on Instagram led to this.
I love this. I really hope people can take something away from this and like actually try it. Having friendships as an adult is hard, and so is long distance friendships. And, you know, we're going through it as, you know, our relationship keeps going, and I love it. It's just challenging us in new ways, and I think only good things can come from it. And hopefully people can try. I mean, if you want to do a pumpkin date, go for it. But I mean, pumpkin season's kind of coming to an end soon. But, you know, if you want to try something along the lines of doing a pumpkin FaceTime date, try it.
You could do like a date night. You could do, there's so many different things you could do.
Hot cocoa night, or I don't know, there's gingerbread
wine night.
Wine night, puppy night. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now.
Yeah, but
seriously, or just freaking get on the call and FaceTime them, or just send them a text. Say, hey, you want to FaceTime? You want to catch up? Or, hey, you want to call and catch up? Or send them a little gift from Amazon. Just something. It's so easy just to do something like that. And believe it or not, chances are they'll love it.
And it makes a really big difference. Those little things, adding those into your friendships slowly, it makes a big difference. And you'll see how much your friendships grow when you send those little texts a little more. You show that you're thinking about the person, because the right friends, it's going to mean a lot. And I think that's something huge too. We've talked about this in podcasts, if you want to go back and you want to listen to them, but finding the right friends. Not every person, if you send those texts and you send those gifts, might not be the right friend. It might not.
Yeah. I mean, I reached out to a college roommate and she responded once, and then I was like, how's life? How are you doing? And then nothing. I was like, all right.
You tried. And I think that's
And I can now peacefully feel good that I tried, and I can move on.
And I think a lot of times if you do these things and you're like, wow, I am not getting anything in return, you can then step back and be like, this isn't the friendship for that, but let me put this energy into another friendship that really means a lot and is going to grow.
Someone will cherish that.
Yeah.
Someone will. I will leave this final question or challenge. If you try this, sending a friend a text or a little gift, let us know and we'll send you a little fun thing. But you have to message us on Instagram and let us know what they say, whether they respond or not, or you send someone something. Tell us. We want to hear your stories about your long distance friendships. We love hearing them. We're going through it every day, and that's what this episode's all about.
I love that.